I'm Jackie Flavin, Customer Insights Leader with Demco, and this is Open Book, our weekly conversation series with industry experts about how they're navigating COVID-19 challenges. Today, I'm joined by Deb Kerr. She has 40 years of incredible experience in K-12 education. Deborah served the last 20 years as superintendent, 13 years with Brown Deer District, and then 7 with Wilmot. Is it Wilmot grade?
Yeah.
Wilmot.
Wilmot Consolidated.
Okay. She served as president of AASA, which is the National School Superintendents Association, and also the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, WASDA. She has taught in private school, public school, rural schools, and even started a 4K charter school. She has launched education foundations and is a founding member of the Closing the Achievement Gap Consortium, which is a group of more than 30 area school districts working to address disparities in academic achievement among students. She currently runs a consultancy, Lead Greatly LLC, which supports education leaders in equity, coaching, and special projects. And in September, she announced her campaign for State Superintendent of Public Instruction, which is the top education post in Wisconsin. Wow, we are so lucky to have you here today to chat with us about what's going on in Wisconsin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. It's just a pleasure and honor to be here today.
So I'm wondering, maybe to start off our conversation, we're about 2 months into the school year. How are things going in Wisconsin?
Well, for any school leader or superintendent across Wisconsin and across the country, this has just been an incredibly difficult time to be a leader. And so first of all, I want to give a shout out to all my colleagues who have been doing this great work, because not only did they have to deal with a global health pandemic, we've had to deal with a racial reckoning pandemic and an economic pandemic, as schools are the highest employers of most communities across the nation. And so there's just been just a lack of meaningful leadership at all levels to help support superintendents on this journey. There's no superintendent playbook to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And so a lot of our superintendent colleagues have had to become health department specialists, contact tracers, and do things that they were never trained to do. But what I want you to know is that this group of servant leaders have come together to support children and education in their very own school communities. So it's been very difficult, and they've faced unprecedented situations and all the scenario planning and contingencies along with that. They're facing teacher shortages, higher than usual retirement rates, and all the adults that work in the schools are just as stressed as the parents are trying to teach the kids at home during this time. So I would just say we're not doing so well in Wisconsin. Right now we have one of the nation's worst COVID-19 outbreaks in the United States, and health officials have calculated that nearly 500 COVID-19 outbreaks are happening in our schools, and more than 15,000 children ages 17 and younger have been infected so far. So numerous schools are having to deal with these issues, when all along, all of our superintendents have wanted to get back to face-to-face instruction, because we all realize how important and necessary that is. However, the switching and the pivoting of hybrid and in-person has just been making it very difficult. Even the most largest districts have remained virtual learning, Milwaukee, Racine, Madison, Green Bay, because they just couldn't come back safely to school and manage all of the scenarios and protocols put out by the CDC. However, on the other hand, our rural schools, the majority of our rural schools have been able to get back to face-to-face instruction. But one of the drivers to that was because they did not have robust internet access. So while our families have all had choices on whether they were going to come back to school or not, there's been certainly a lot of challenges out there. So I want to also say thank you to all the parents like yourself or others out there. You have been superheroes in dealing with this situation as well, because you have had to monitor your child on technology or a new learning platform that you yourself didn't even know a lot about. So all of us educators appreciate the patience that parents have afforded to us, but we know we've got to do it better moving forward.
Well said. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I've always appreciated the teachers in my life and my kids' lives, and I think I think we're all seeing like how hard educators are working and how hard they always work, and I'm always gonna advocate for them, and I feel like more people are sort of seeing like these are really our frontline workers.
Absolutely, and in light of all of this, the people who have dedicated their lives to education want the best for all of the kids. And so they've been working really hard, learning new ways of doing things as fast as they can. And we're not perfect. We haven't gotten it all right, but now we do have a chance to do it better and make sure that all of our kids are engaged moving forward, whether we're in virtual learning or a hybrid situation or face-to-face. So all of this change and disruption has really caused us to be more reflective on what are the needs of the kids. And so when I talk about equity, that means that we've got to give kids what they need. And through this pandemic, unfortunately, persistent and inequities have been very much exposed. And we can't go back to doing things the way we used to do things. So we've got to make sure that all kids are fed, that they have a home that's not abusive, and that they are supported in their learning. We have to make sure the living conditions are appropriate for them to learn in a virtual world and participate using technology. And some of our families, even in suburban areas, didn't have that access to internet. So school leaders have had to make sure that hotspots were bought. School buses were driven to places in communities like parking lots of churches and schools to make sure that they had to access. So it's been a very complicated Gordian knot of a problem to deal with. But my colleagues and I have been collaborating together and working through all of these situations as a team. And I think that has helped us to get through this.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad that you announced you're running for superintendent of public instruction, because you have such a wonderful background. You've worked in so many different parts of education. You have proven success leading people collaboratively, just like you mentioned. And I love that in the midst of a pandemic, when things couldn't be tougher, you said, "I'm gonna jump in and try to lead this." So I'm just so curious, what led you to want to run, especially now?
Well, I've been working, very closely with my former school board, and we had planned succession planning, but I didn't know I'd be a COVID-19 superintendent the last 6 months of my employment. But I was trying to think about what I was going to do next, because as you've said in my bio, I have a lot of unique experiences that have allowed me to have a network of colleagues from across the country and be exposed to wonderful leadership. And so it was my birthday on June 12th that I decided I was going to run for state superintendent, because I believe our Wisconsin kids deserve better. I believe we can create a world-class education system that makes us a model for others across the country. I believe I have the unique experiences that make me most qualified for the job, because I'm parochial educated. I've taught in private schools. I've created charter schools, foundations. I'm public school dedicated. But I've also worked as a team, and anywhere I've gone, I've been a champion of equity and excellence with education to take our kids to the next level. I have not been afraid to talk about the achievement gaps or the inequities that have been exposed to this pandemic. And school boards, leaders, teachers, we can do better by working together to address and have the conversations about inequities across our systems, and make sure that we put the systems in place to alleviate those and get better outcomes. So that is the reason I'm running for state superintendent of public instruction.
I love it. And so you've already done a great job of outlining the challenges. And I'm thinking about Wisconsin in particular. There's so many challenges. What would you say are like the top, maybe like 1, 2, or 3 challenges specifically in Wisconsin? at this?
Again, thinking about the equity of resources and services. All of our communities really rallied around the school districts when this first happened, and they're continuing to do that. But we have to get back to work. We have to open our schools. But there's significant mental health and trauma issues going on right now. And so we cannot underestimate the power and importance of building that sense of caring and support and collaboration for our students. And so I think our number one priority is social emotional learning and taking care of mental health issues, making sure that families have support as well as our teachers and our students. So when you think back when our school closed so dramatically, kids and teachers didn't have that closure at the end of the year activities. And so some of those students never got to say goodbye to their teachers or goodbye to some of their friends. And now some of their friends have moved away. This pandemic has caused a greater degree of mobility for some of our families. And so I think there's been a lot of stress that we've had to deal with the students, but also the staff. So SEL supports, and not just having grants to take care of these things. I think this is an essential funding item that needs to be budgeted for in the next our next state budget, because all kids, all teachers need support in this area. The second priority, I believe, would be robust internet access for all. This is a national problem. Believe it or not. In this day and age, when technology should be an essential service like water or electricity or food, we had some communities that could not get access, so the student could not do a Zoom meeting or get online or do homework. And so they had to learn by getting packets of information. You can't learn to read like that. You need that interaction of a teacher or an interventionist to assist and promote the teaching and learning of the content. And so robust internet is vital to our future success. And so I know that our rural schools really face a lot of struggles in that area because there's a lack of fiber that's been laid across the state. And so we need to rethink that moving forward so that all of our kids have that access to technology and that they're able to complete rigorous and relevant schoolwork related to their learning.
Yeah, awesome. Well said. Yeah, those are, and you've done a great job explaining like how you would address them. And I'm just listening to you chat, just hoping and crossing my fingers that that all of this can happen, and thinking about how much better the world will be after we get through all this. I'm wondering what has this pandemic been like for you as a leader in the K-12 space? I mean, certainly there was no training, no prep, no precedent to look back on. So what has this been like to figure out how to lead people and figure out what the right next step is amongst all this chaos?
I think for me, at first was just getting over the initial shock of that we're in a pandemic, and I've never lived through a pandemic in my lifetime. And so as a leader, we serve others. So the first thing that any superintendent had to think about when we closed down our schools was feeding the children. And so that's exactly what we did. And so school districts and superintendents across the nation were feeding kids thousands of meals every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and making special arrangements to make sure that parents were able to pick up those meals or have them delivered. I mean, our people were heroic in their efforts to do that. And so after the kids were being fed, the other part was making sure the staff was taken care of, because all of a sudden, now my teachers became teachers of their own children at home or teachers of their neighbors' children, because that had never happened before. And then they had to take care of the kids from our school district. So needed to make sure that the staff was feeling supported. They needed some right away training, just in time training on some special tools to help their teaching become more effective in this new virtual world. And then we had to take care of their own social emotional learning. So once we took care of that, then we had to make sure that the kids had all the devices and the internet. So it was just about taking care of others. But at the same time, realizing that you couldn't do it alone. And so I was really grateful. We had a quadrant of superintendents in the North Shore of Milwaukee who we worked together. We met twice a week. And in one way, it was kind of therapeutic counseling for us too, because we were connecting with a very serious problem and doing some problem solving and scenario planning and working with our health department very closely to understand this, because that was part of the problem. No one had ever done this before. There wasn't a vaccine. They didn't have a cure for this, and they don't have one now. So it was about just taking care of yourself, taking care of your staff, taking care of your school community and parents, but then realizing after all those things were in place, saying to yourself, you know what? We have to be persistent in our work, but we also have to persevere, because we can't do this and be perfect, but we're going to get through this, because I want us to all to look back in 5 years from now and say, we did the best we could during a pandemic, and I am really proud of that. And that only happened because of the collaboration and partnerships that we engaged in with our families, parents, and other school leaders across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way through it is together, and that's
stronger together. Absolutely.
So post-pandemic, when coronavirus is not something we don't talk about anymore, what do you envision education looking like in Wisconsin? Like, where do we go from here?
That's a great question, because I hope a lot of people are thinking about that, because we can't go back to the old way of doing anything. I think there's lots of silver linings to this pandemic. We learned that some teachers and some students learn better in this new virtual world. Okay. So I think we have to look at transformation. Let's learn the lessons from the pandemic. We need to have learning become more innovative and personalized. So every child should have a personalized learning plan. Teachers should know what the kids need through their interventions and their assessments and their feedback to kids all along the way. Our teachers are the same way. They need the support and training too to teach in this new way of doing things. But basically, it's about taking care of what the kids need to be successful in a world that's going to require partnerships, communications, creativity, problem solving, and innovation. And so we have to think about what the kids need to be successful and match those skills to the economic development of our state, of all the jobs and all the employers. And so I think in the first time in the history of Wisconsin, we can start looking at what are the opportunities of what our needs are from our employers and what we can teach in our schools starting K-12, because there's so many pathways that we can have kids go through to become successful after they leave us, but it should be based upon their strengths and what they want to do. And the exciting part of this transformation, as we think about how to create this world-class vision for education, is that there are no dead ends to this pathway. There's another turn or a twist that a student can go through, and that way they can find the job that meets their skill set and that they are very interested in.
That's great. I love how engaging them more now is actually going to lead them somewhere even better in the future, right? Like it's all good, they're going to have a better experience as a student and land somewhere that is great for who they are when they're an adult.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to be able to be confident learners and be able to express themselves and articulate what their goals are, what they want to learn about, and their why, their purpose. And why education is going to be an important part of that, no matter what job, what career, what college you go to. Learning is lifelong. And so we need to continue to instill that and then work with our business partners all across the state to make sure that our schools are viable talent magnets for their employment and in their businesses.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. I'm leaving our conversation so hopeful about the future. So thank you.
Well, great. Well, I am very hopeful because I know we can create a world-class education system here in Wisconsin and be the best in the country. Our kids deserve it, and here we go. I'm ready to go.
Thank you.